The Sport Clips Haircuts Head of the Class giveaway. Register for your chance to win a Razer laptop and more at sportclips.com/back-to-school and go straight to the head of the class with an MVP experience. So check in online today. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC age 18 plus. Ends 8/24/18.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
What day is it? Tuesday?
It's Fantasy Day.
Hey, there you go. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic, Trey Wingo here. Okay, first of all, are you okay?
This is a little odd.
Because for 18 years you were in the studio. Well, some other show, I can't remember the name. And you were on the other side.
I was on the other side. Greeny was sitting here, and I was sitting where you were. So it is kind of a weird thing. It's like if me and my wife all of a sudden go to bed tonight and we go on opposite sides of the bed.
That can't happen.
No, it would be very, very odd.
Now, the reason this is the way it is here, people like you like The Princess Bride.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you know that line, I am not left-handed.
Yeah.
Okay? I didn't know, for all these years, I didn't know Greeny was a left-hander.
That's exactly right. That's one of the reasons Greeny sat here for the board that he would use.
Yeah.
Greeny was left-handed, so it was easier for him to reach, obviously, with his left hand.
And do all these sounders like... See, I am not left-handed.
You are not.
So whenever I would fill in and sit over there, I felt like I was using my left thumb to do everything.
I should have done that. I said, Trey, I'm more comfortable on that side and made you work your left hand.
Would have been a disaster. I literally can't do anything left-handed.
Well.
Literally. So anyway, that's why this is
leads right into fantasy, doesn't it?
It all makes a perfect segue as we are here, by the way. And yesterday, by the way, was National Left-Handers Day.
Was it really?
There you go. So,
wow.
It all sort of comes together.
Yeah, not really, but
some sort of convoluted way. But we are here in this studio today because it is hour 13 of the Fantasy Football Marathon. Remember, you can sign up to play fantasy football by going to ESPN.com/FFL or in the ESPN Fantasy app, which I happen to have on my mobile device. Now, this is always a fun... 29 hours is it? It's somewhere to 29 hours.
Yeah.
Because I did most of this for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And as I was walking in, and they were doing it on, was it on ESPN or ESPN2 before us? I can't remember. And they put up a list of things of side effects of sleep deprivation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's something you and I aren't familiar with.
See, you're used to doing this.
Yeah.
My son is used to doing Fantasy Island. He did it with Jason Fitz. He did it with Sarah Spain. He got off the hook on that. They don't have Fantasy Island this year. But as I said, I dig anything that we get to do with the word fantasy in it.
There you
I'm
go.
all for it.
And it goes back to, no, we won't do that again.
Okay.
But anyway, so we're part of this. Sign up. It's a lot of fun. And the Fantasy Marathon will go on all through prime time tonight. It is a blast. It really is a lot of fun. Glad to be a part of it in this incarnation. Again, go to ESPN.com/FFL or use the ESPN Fantasy app to sign up. It's a great way to set up your fantasy team as well. We're 23 days away from the start of the regular season. It's coming fast. Let's get through what we need to do, and let's start with what's trending, and Jacob deGrom continues to trend very well. There's never been a Cy Young winner with a losing record, and going into last night's game against Luis Severino and the Yankees, he had a llosing record. He has a losing record no more. Back to 500, struck out 12 in that 8-5 win in the Bronx.
Yeah, pretty nice, obviously, evening for him. He is improving to 7-7. His 181 ERA is best in baseball. .38 better than the next closest pitcher, which is Max Scherzer, who, by the way, had a big night the other night, even though Washington got walked off by the Cubs. And,
we'll get into that.
Then again, Yankee star Luis Severino, he allowed 4 runs, 7 hits, 4 innings. He's allowed at least 3 earned runs in 7 straight starts. By the way, the Yankees now 10 games back of the Red Sox. So that one, we knew that one was going to be over. But, 10 back. That's been a while. As far as the Red Sox, the last time the Red Sox had a 10-game lead was when the games ended July 7, 2007.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So congratulations again. The Yankees are playing for that wild card game at home at this point. There's no way around it. And Jacob deGrom no longer has a losing record, so maybe he can win the Cy Young. It's amazing how well just shows you how wins and losses don't necessarily tell you how well you are as a pitcher. And after hitting a home run to lead off Game 1 of his team's doubleheader sweep over the Marlins, Ronald Acuna Jr. of the Braves did it again in Game 2, just becoming the 4th player in Major League Baseball history to hit a leadoff home run in both games of a doubleheader, joining Brady Anderson, Ricky Henderson, and, of course, Harry Hooper.
Harry Hooper. We got to get a little bit of info on Harry Hooper. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we need some more stats and information.
I don't know when Harry played. I'm hoping – I don't know when he played, so we're going to get
I'm going to say like
1874.
1874.
Kuna now has homered in 4 straight games, the youngest to ever do so. Oh, by the way, did we mention? He's 20.
Yeah.
He's 20.
Is that good?
He has 17 home runs. It's amazing what he's doing, just 259 at-bats. He's 20. What were you doing when you were 20? What feats of greatness were you doing when you were 20 years old?
I don't even want to tell you.
I mean, we were both in college.
Yes.
So a lot of it, luckily, because there were no camera phones or anything, will never be recorded.
Yep.
But I don't imagine we were doing anything like that.
Mike, I have an update.
You do?
Hold on. It's very important.
Go ahead.
Breaking news. Harry Hooper. Want to know more about him?
Oh, yes.
Born August 24th, 1887.
Yeah.
Died December 18th, 1974. Right fielder in the early 20th century. And guess what? Hall of Famer.
So he was 87. He lived to 87?
Yeah, he lived a long and illustrious life.
Wow. Born in Bell Station, California.
Played in 4 World Series.
Okay, that's impressive.
So there you go. He played for him. And also he played for both Sox.
Oh, he did?
Boston and Chicago.
Wow.
Red and white.
So, again, why we used his name is Ronald Acuna Jr. is the 4th player in baseball history to hit a leadoff home run in both games of a doubleheader. He, Brady Anderson, Ricky Henderson, and now Harry Hooper as well.
Listen, if nothing else today, we've uncovered a little gold about Harry Hooper.
Use that nugget anywhere you'd like today. You're welcome.
By the way, that's a great name. Where's old Harry Hooper? What is he up to?
Nickname. See, that's what I love.
He's got to be Hoop, right?
About the lineups back then is they all had nicknames.
Yeah.
So he had to have some double H.
Yeah, double H.
Yeah.
Hooper.
H squared.
Hoopy. Probably Hoopy.
Hey, Hoops.
Hoops. I like that.
Yeah. Let's call him Hoops.
For the rest of this show,
he's
we're going to call him Hoops, and we're going to dig into as much as we can about the legendary life of Harry Hooper.
So one more time, Ronald Acuna is the 4th player in Major League Baseball to lead off a home run in both games of a doubleheader, joining Brady Anderson, Ricky Henderson, and Hoops.
Hoopy. And,
you going Hoopy?
Yeah,
Hoops or Hoopy?
You play that sounder all you want. We're staying on Hoopy for a long time. Look, this makes sense because our wonderful makeup woman who comes in and takes care of us, her name is Hope. We call her Hoopy. So it's the Hoopy and Hoopy show
nothing
today.
To do with whether we call him Hoops or Hoopy.
I like Hoopy and Hoopy.
I think Hoops is... Would you rather be nicknamed Hoops or Hoopy?
Well, that's the beauty of it. No, I'd rather be nicknamed Hoops, but you want to give them a nickname that they don't like. That's the whole point, right?
Anybody in his family is listening right now or watching.
I feel bad.
All right.
I mean, like my nickname was Ugly Gangly. So, I didn't get to make that nickname. They gave it to me.
Was?
That's a fair point. We move on, please. Carmelo Anthony. Oh, it finally happened. He has officially signed with the Rockets, where he may be asked to come off the bench. Anthony's 1,054 consecutive starts to begin his NBA career. Second longest streak since starters were first tracked in 1970-71, behind only Harry Hooper. No, behind only Patrick Ewing. So the question is becoming, is he really going to come off the bench? Because you know what he said about 4 times last year? I ain't coming off no bench.
He's going to act like it's all right now, and then if he's coming off the bench, just wait to see if he gets disgruntled. D'Antoni had said it's going to be a better fit now with the Rockets than it was when they were together with the Knicks, because for the Knicks, they basically traded the team to get him from Denver to go to the Knicks, and then all the pressure to win a championship, which obviously didn't come to fruition. As the coach said, listen, we have a championship-ready team. Remember, they were doing it to Golden State, and then Chris Paul has to miss Game 6 and Game 7.
And then they missed 4,000 consecutive threes.
Exactly. So they're ready to go, and now they're just adding this piece. So it's completely different to when Carmelo went to the Knicks of how he's going to Houston. Now, you just want to hope he's happy. They haven't obviously decided what's going to happen, whether he's coming off the bench or not. As the coach said, a lot of combinations have to be worked out and played through. So we'll see.
I think he's pretty much coming off the bench.
I think he's coming off the bench.
I mean,
they're
just this quote by D'Antoni is great to USA Today. They're trying to, how delicately can we handle this? Quote, I don't know, and that's something we'll have to work out. All I know is that we'll try different combos, preseason, early season, and the good thing is with analytics and gut feelings and coaches and players, we'll figure out the best way to play.
Analytics and gut feelings.
There you go.
I wonder what their split is in that.
Well, hey, listen, if it's second spectrum stats, we'll use that right there. By the way, Carmelo Anthony potentially coming off the bench in Houston is what everybody's talking about, as well as Harry Hooper. It's brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com for details. And we finish up what's trending with something that I'm sure Bears fans are like, finally, He's here. The last drafted player has signed. The Bears have agreed to terms of first-round pick, the linebacker Roquan Smith out of Georgia. According to Adam Schefter, the deal is slotted for $18 million guaranteed over 4 years. A source told Schefter that the contract includes about $11 million in bonuses. And obviously the big stipulation, Mike, was the thing that the Bears caved on, the language that if Roquan Smith gets suspended for this lowering the helmet rule, which is being called way too much in the preseason for good, clean tackles, that he won't lose some of that guaranteed money.
Yeah, that was one of his fights, but from what we understand, they gave on that a bit ago, so we're not really sure, and I'm sure we will find out what was holding it up to this point. Again, there were 25 of those lowering the helmet penalties over the weekend. And I think Dan Graziano, who came on the show yesterday, is correct. And I think it is about the preseason. And we even said that there's going to be tons of flags thrown. Some correctly, some incorrectly. And boy, there were some incorrectly, no doubt about it. But this is a preseason when they need to work on it. But everybody does need to get on the same page. The players need to know what they can do and what they can't do in this situation. Bottom line, though, for Roquan Smith, he needed to get in there. His position on that defense, he is going to be the man calling the plays. So that there's added responsibility there. Obviously, right now at the beginning he's going to, but that's what they're eventually trying to work to. So he's got some time to make up. I don't care what you were doing while you were away from the complex, working out, getting ready. You're not football ready right now, both being on the field with your teammates and working with them and getting yourself in football shape as well. So he has some catching up to do.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that the language that whatever the holdup was took this long, because you're right. It was about, I think, 10 or 12 days ago where the report came out that the Bears had said, fine, we won't take that one out of it. But then it came to some ambiguous language in the contract that was about other potential things where he could be suspended for things on the field and protecting that money.
Right. And so it did get, at the beginning, I think a lot of people sided with Roquan Smith saying, this is a precedent now with this new helmet rule. He's kind of standing fast. And once he got that, then it kind of shifted toward,
what's the deal?
Now it's about a little more compromise. You may need to get in there for your own good to get yourself ready to help this team.
And we've seen how this has played out a couple of years ago. Joey Bosa held out for a long time. Then what happened? Tweaked the hamstring. I think he missed the first 2 or 3 games.
That's what you got to watch right now is that lower body pull now, that hammy, the quad, the calf. We'll get into a hammy. There was a pretty important hammy that was strained yesterday. But that is an issue when a guy comes in this late.
All right, so that's the deal. Roquan Smith is finally in camp for the Chicago Bears and can continue, hopefully, for the Bears' sake and his sake, that long and illustrious tradition of unbelievable middle linebackers that have played that position for the Chicago Bears. All right, now it's time for the straightest of Straight Talk. I mean, could not be any straighter. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Did you happen to see, Mike, the ratings for the PGA Championship?
I certainly did.
70% higher.
I mean,
70% higher than last year.
Again, day 3 Saturday was 54% higher. Yeah. And we were like, okay. And the final round is going to be even higher. And it was. I mean, so I know there's so many people out there. Why are you talking about Tiger? Why are you doing?
That's why.
He was right there at the end this time around. It's not like, he was 8 strokes off, so he was right there. And I think we gave Koepka his due a bit as well.
Without question,
he certainly deserved it. But even he understood, and he knows the talk is going to be about Tiger and what he did. Make no mistake about it, gang. The 74% is Tiger. Don't try and spin it any other way. Don't do it.
It's unspinnable.
If Tiger wasn't in that and you had a competitive ending, maybe it would have been up a smaller percentage, but this 74% is Tiger Woods without question.
And you need to put it in context because what happened at last year's PGA? Justin Thomas, who's won 8 times over the last 2 years, more than any other player on tour, gets his breakthrough major. He and Jordan Spieth grew up together. Jordan started winning all the majors, and Justin was like, hey, what about me? And I'm going to make myself as good as you. It was a great story, a young American star on the rise. And people are like, yeah, but where's Tiger?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way this played out, guys. And oh, by the way, let's be clear about something else. It was the highest rating for the PGA Championship since 2009. Now, let me think for a second. What happened in 2009?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tiger was in contention down the lead and was caught from behind for the first time at a major when he had the lead going into Sunday by Y.E. Yang.
Yeah.
So 2009, very high ratings. Then through 2017, not so good ratings. 2018, back up. What was the common theme? Tiger was in the hunt.
It just is. I mean, that's just the way
embrace it, man.
I mean,
just embrace it.
Fight it. Yeah, fight it all you want. It's going to do you no good. He is the reason the ratings are up, and you hope he stays competitive with this. And let's wait and see what he does in the Ryder Cup, though we still don't know if he's going to be in it or not.
And that was straight talk.
Because what's about to happen
is not straight talk. That was straight talk from Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Small business protection just got easier with more than 30 coverage options available. Progressive has you covered. More at progressivecommercial.com. So, as you alluded to, Mike, that was the straight talk. Then we're getting into the least straight, most ambiguous talk you can ever have.
Yeah.
As happens every year after the PGA Championship, the captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team has a press conference. Mm-hmm. Ostensibly, this press conference is to talk about the 8 automatics that have made the team, which would be Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed, Justin Thomas, Bubba Watson, Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, and Webb Simpson.
And we knew all that. This was out there. This wasn't a surprise.
And it's wonderful. And congratulations to all of them. That's a really good team.
Yes, it is.
For the first time in a long time, I, as a huge golf fan and a huge Ryder Cup fan, believe that we should be the favorites going into Europe this year because of the dominance we've seen from Dustin and Justin and Brooks and all these guys and Spieth, all these guys that are winners, okay? So the question now becomes for Jim Furyk, who are you going to be your 4 captains picks? Because the team is made up of 12, and those won't be made until early in September. So obviously, after what we saw from Tiger at the Open Championship at Carnoustie, and then at the PGA Championship at Bellerive in St. Louis, where the crowds were massive, Jim was asked about whether or not Tiger Woods is going to be on the team. And let's just say, bless his heart, he tried.
His game's trending, so it's great to see him playing well. You know, for me, the numbers they're nice. Good to look at, but not always the most important. We want the players that are going to help us be successful.
Do you think he can help you?
It's a good question. He's playing very well. I think there's a lot of folks out there that probably think he can help us. And we'll, really what we wanted to talk about today was the top 8 players. I realize Tiger's a story. I realize he's playing very well, and I'm excited to see that.
Jim, you're the only one that wanted to talk about the top 8 players. Again, before anybody starts saying, give them their due, again, we knew of them. We've known of the 8 players, okay? This has been no secret of who the 8 players were going to be. Yeah. So we know of the 8 players. So really there's 2 choices here. And I heard my son talking about it on his show First and Last right before us. And part of me agrees, and part of me understands also that captain's picks aren't supposed to happen until the beginning of September, right? That's the protocol of this thing.
And golf is all about protocol.
It is about protocol. Clear. But wouldn't it have been something if Jim Furyk said, you know what? Because this would have been part of my thought process. Nobody is going to care about a word that comes out of my mouth until everybody knows Tiger's on the team. Yeah. Right? So you can talk around it, and all anybody hears is the teacher for Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. That's it. So the thought process would be, just say, I know the 4 captains picks aren't till September. This guy has changed golf so much. We just saw it with the ratings, what he can do. I'm just telling you now, Tiger is one of the picks. And now everybody can say, okay, Tiger's on the team. And now you can start, maybe you'll still talk about Tiger, but some of the other guys as well. Or people, Jim, will care what you're saying about the other guys because you got that out of the way. So there are 2 sides of it I certainly can see. That would have been a bold strategy, Cotton, had he decided to go down that road.
Let's see if it pays off for him.
But he's stuck with protocol.
Look, and I get it. You could make the argument, well, if you say, yeah, Tiger's in, then people will say, well, what about Phil? Or what about Kevin Kiz? Or what about these guys? And I get that. But there's no one player in one sport that moves. He doesn't move the needle. He is the needle. That's why he wears red on Sundays. Because the needle is red. He wears red. He is the needle. He moves it more than anybody else. So I just want to say something to my good friend Jim Furyk, who I've seen a million times when I'm covering the Open Championship or the U.S. Open. Jimmy, J-Man, Furzy, the guy with the wacky swing. We love you. He's a huge Steelers fan, by the way. Huge Steelers fan. So he's probably watching the Fantasy Football Marathon to get a little tip and information.
Sure. Just take Antonio Brown.
Yeah, exactly. If you have the number 1 pick, take Antonio Brown. Jimmy, my guy, my dude, Jimmy, J-Man, Furzy. Just say it. Go ahead and say it. Say it.
You know what? You'll feel so much better.
Everyone can move on.
Yeah,
just acknowledge it. I mean, it was almost like in a much nicer way because it's about golf. Remember the Terrell Owens, Drew Rosenhaus press conference? Next question. Next question.
Yeah.
Next question. Or another way, when Mark McGuire was testifying on Capitol Hill, I'm not here to talk about the past. All I can think of was Jim Furyk saying, I'm not here to talk about Tiger. I'm not here to talk about Tiger. I get it.
Should have just got it over with.
Just, lance the boil.
Big question.
Pull off the Band-Aid.
I have to you. Does he really go by Furzy?
No.
Okay.
No.
Golic
and Wingo.
and Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr.
Matthew Berry, our fantasy analyst, is here. How are we, brother?
I'm good.
What hour are we in for you?
Hour 13.
Whatever hour it is.
Well, I mean, I did the 6 p.m. Sports Center before it all started, and there were some meetings.
So how long have you been up is what I'm saying?
Hour 17, 18.
All right, there you go.
Is there a particular way that you prepare for this? By sleeping for 3 days?
Well, if you could see draft juice, that's what it is.
Do we have to test him?
We have another cup we need you to
fill. It's a bit of an energy drink there. Yeah. So, fantasylife.com.
There you go.
Yeah, baby.
All right, so what has been, because, having hosted the Fantasy Football Marathon the last 2 years with you and Adam, what's been the weirdest thing that's happened so far this year?
You know what? It's been relatively unweird.
Okay. Well, let's fix that now.
Right, exactly. The weirdest thing, we did a fantasy football combine. Oh, here's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Matt Berry, the other Matt Berry, and I did a throwing competition. Matt Berry, of course, played high school football.
In Arizona.
In Arizona. He's a big star. I did not, as a Jewish kid growing up in Texas, play football. And
College Station, right?
College Station, Texas, good memory. And I beat him. That was the weirdest
There it is.
thing. There
nice.
you go.
It's a good job by
I beat him in this throwing competition, which I think I was a heavy underdog.
Wow.
You were, and you are here giving us the Straight Talk.
Yeah,
brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contract.
Westgate did have you as a heavy underdog.
Yeah, no question about it. They took a bath on that one.
Matthew Berry is here at Golic and Wingo. Give your fantasy question. We're gonna hit him with a bunch of these questions in a little bit. He's here for the entire half hour up to 7 Eastern. So let's just start at the top of this thing. Just to lay it out and get it out of the way. Antonio Brown up there, Le'Veon Bell up there. Give us where people should be looking, obviously, right off the bat. And are there any newcomers to that normal group that's been at the top?
Well, Saquon Barkley would be the guy for me, right? So, my top 5 are in order, and I think you'd be thrilled to have any of these guys as your number 1 pick. But I have Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Brown in that order. So, but in terms of the top 10, the one newcomer, Saquon Barkley, obviously. You think about what Pat Shurmur did with the offense last year in Minnesota, over 100 targets to running backs. We're talking about PPR scoring, which is the default setting on ESPN. And so Shurmur's offense, I think, is really a perfect fit for Saquon Barkley's skill set, which, as we know, is enormous.
Yeah.
So just in terms of, the success he's had in Philadelphia or Minnesota as a play caller in terms of the running backs and the fantasy success those running backs have had under Shurmur, and then you think about just the volume. Louis Riddick and I talk about this all the time, and Mike, you can speak to this, somebody who's played in the pros. Like, there is such that doesn't get talked about a lot as this sort of, as I like to call it, the politics of a football team, right? Saquon Barkley needs to work. For the ownership, for the front office, for the coaching staff. This is a young man who is going to get every single opportunity to succeed because he needs to be a success, given all the criticism that the team took for taking a running back at the 2nd overall pick. So there's a huge buy-in on every level in trying to make him a success. He's going to get every chance.
And a quick note, in case you did miss it, about Saquon Barkley, slight pull of the hamstring yesterday on a deep route, came up just limping a little bit, wrapped the leg, and obviously they'll be as easy with him as they need be. There's no sense in trying to showcase him in the preseason at this point.
At the moment, no warning signs yet. Yeah, I mean, so that was a little bit of a scare, but we've got a month or so till the season starts. So
okay, Matthew Berry is here with us as we're fully immersed in the Fantasy Football Marathon. It's hour 13. You're up hour 17 or whatever.
Whatever it is.
You'll be up for well over 30.
Yep.
So run through your top 5 picks again.
It is Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Brown. Those are my top 5.
Okay, and obviously, when you hear those top 5, there's 4 running backs and Antonio Brown.
Sure.
If you're playing in a full PPR league,
yes, sir.
Would that
as you and I do,
right? Would that flip in any way, shape, or form for you? Would that order change? Because some people have PPR.
That is based on PPR. If it was a non-PPR, it also would not flip. Because again, the rankings would change as you get further into the rankings. But at the top level, what you really want is you want running backs or wide receivers. Honestly, I'm waiting on a quarterback this year. There's not a tight end that I want to draft in the first 2.5 rounds. And so we looked at this, right? And I wrote an article for ESPN.com called the Draft Day Manifesto. And so we looked at the average points per round over the last couple of years of teams that made the championship or the playoffs on ESPN.com. We looked at the millions and millions of leagues. And taking away defense and kicker, the players that you draft in the first and second round will account for, on average, 31% of your weekly total. Just a massive, massive amount. So you really have to nail the first 2 rounds. And running back and wide receiver at the elite level are both rare and the most consistent of the positions. Quarterback is consistent except for the fact that it's really, really deep. There's so many good quarterbacks this year.
Okay, couple of quick things there before we get on to something else. Number one, you have Le'Veon Bell at the top of that list.
Yes.
Any concerns about the holdout and maybe some hamstring injuries or the fact that he said, hey, I'm not playing for this kind of money?
Well,
right? I mean, that has to be a legitimate concern if you have that pick.
It isn't for me. And as we get closer, we'll see what happens. But I mean, the same situation happened last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted a long-term deal. He didn't get the long-term deal. They signed him to the franchise tag. He played under the 1-year deal. Ended up, being once again another elite fantasy running back. 3 out of the last 4 years, Le'Veon Bell has been a top 3 fantasy running back. That's why he's my number 1 pick. Candidly, I actually think it's a little cold-blooded, but I actually think that's one of the reasons that's a positive. Because, number one, I think he's done in Pittsburgh after this year. I think they're going to run him to the ground.
Yeah.
I think Pittsburgh knows, and I think they're going to be like, we got one last year, Le'Veon.
Use him.
We're going to use him. We're until the
632 carries later.
100%. 100%. And I think Le'Veon is like, I want to prove I'm worth that big deal, that huge money. He tweeted out, this is going to be my best season ever. Obviously you can't predict health, but last year, again, held out up until, the middle of August, ended up showing up to camp, and then had a monster season last year. My expectation is, once again, Le'Veon Bell has a huge, huge year. Since 2016, Le'Veon Bell has more 20-point fantasy games than any other running back. He's missed 5 games.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
At Golic and Wingo, again, get your Twitter questions out there for Matthew Berry and your fantasy team, your league, whatever question you have. How about, again, your top 5, people's top 10, people's first round? A lot of just like in the real draft, a lot of the players we all kind of saying the same players over and over. Yep. How about a couple of players who either by coming back from injury didn't get to show their wares last year, or maybe they switched teams and they're in a better situation? Who are a couple of players that you see maybe on the rise because of those things?
Okay, a couple of players that switch teams that I think are in better situations. Well, let's see. I'll start a quarterback, and you may think this is a homer pick because I am a Redskins fan, but I think Alex Smith is in for a big year. So here's a guy that's going as QB 18. Last year was a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and
his numbers last year were ridiculous.
Over the last 2 years, the Jay Gruden offense has been top 5 in fantasy points each of the last 2 years. We know what Kirk Cousins has done, and I will tell you, if you talk to people around the Redskins, from the front office on down, they think they improved at quarterback. They're not sitting there going, oh, boo-hoo, we lost Kirk. They think they improved at quarterback. We will see if that is the case. But they're excited about Alex Smith, and I grant you that Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt are better than their counterparts in Washington, but it is a fantasy-friendly offense. With the loss of Darius Geis, they're going to have to lean on the passing game more. And again, he was the 4th best quarterback in fantasy last year. He's going as QB 18 this year. So Alex Smith is somebody who I think...
Value pick.
Yeah.
So how about a guy coming back from injury that was a youngster last year, a guy like Dalvin Cook?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think full speed ahead on Dalvin Cook. A couple of guys coming off of injury that, I still have highly ranked. Dalvin Cook, obviously in Minnesota, still concerns on the offensive line, but all indications are that he is ahead of schedule and he is going to be the workhorse there. Dalvin Cook was a top 5 fantasy running back, in the early going last year before he got hurt. Kirk Cousins should help that team. Deshaun Watson, who's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy before he got hurt last year. Carson Wentz, he's a little bit more behind than Deshaun Watson. Obviously, Watson's injury happened earlier than Wentz, but both guys are top 7 quarterbacks for me. I think Allen Robinson is really interesting in Chicago as a guy that's A, coming back from injury, and B, changed teams.
Right.
But under Matt Nagy's offense, I expect the entire Bears offense to be really, I think it's to be a fantasy-friendly offense this year, what Nagy's going to install there. I think Trubisky's kind of a deep sleeper. They're more mobile than you give him credit for. So Allen Robinson, who should be the number one wide receiver on a passing offense there. I think watch Tariq Cohen in that offense, by the way. They're going to use him sort of how Matt Nagy used Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, believe it or not. A little bit more of a runner than a pass, but all over the field. They're going to spread him out. They're going to use his speed to create mismatches. So Tariq Cohen is going like his running back 30-something, I think is a nice value.
Real quick note on the Bears, they love the tight end.
Yes,
so
they do.
If you want to throw a tight end in.
And to that point, Trey Burton is a guy who also changed teams. I have him inside my top 10. He's going, I think, as tight end 12 or 11 on ESPN.com right now. But I do like Trey Burton to that extent as well. Another guy who's changed team.
God bless you, sir. I know you got a long day ahead of you. So we have our Twitter view from 1-800-Flowers.com. A lot of people writing in, asking questions about Matthew. Let's start with this one before we get to anything else. You've said that A.J. Green won't be on any of your fantasy teams this year. What is your beef with Adriel Jeremiah Green?
I think he's obviously a talented player, and I don't know that I would say that he's not going to be on any of my teams. But I have him as wide receiver 10. He's going as wide receiver 7. I think it's unlikely that he winds up on any of my teams because where he's going is somewhere into the second round, top of the third, and for me, because I have him, I have other guys ahead of him that are going later, like I'd prefer Devontae Adams, I prefer Mike Evans to him. My guess is I won't get him at that turn into the second, top of the third, I'm probably taking a second running back there in terms of just, I'd rather have like a Christian McCaffrey or a Dalvin Cook sometimes going around there, somebody like that, a Devontae Freeman. My concern on A.J. Green, career low 54% reception percentage last year. We do these consistency rankings on ESPN.com in terms of how consistent a wide receiver is in terms of fantasy points. He was 27th in our consistency rankings. A guy named Tristan Cockcroft does a great job for us there on ESPN.com. 27th is not awful, but for a guy that you're drafting as your number one wide receiver, you want better than that. Scored on 6 of his 7 red zone receptions last year. His career in that area is 57%, so I think you're going to see some regression there in terms of his touchdown rate. I don't know. I'm nervous about A.J. Green this year as a top 7 fantasy wide receiver. I'm not a huge Andy Dalton believer. I think they go more run heavy in Cincinnati based on what they've done in the offseason.
Scotty wants to know how many fantasy football teams are too many to have, asking for a friend.
You can always do one more. Yeah. Whatever number you're at, one more. Do one more. That's the number.
Scotty doesn't know. As Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN, brought to you by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Our Twitter view from the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Who is your late round, 10th or later, player who has the best shot at winning you the title? He says his vote is for Spencer Ware.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about, guys like Spencer Ware. So it's interesting. When you go into a draft, I like to draft players that have one or two things. A range of outcomes both yearly and weekly. And so what I mean by that is, so somebody like Antonio Brown has a very narrow range of outcomes over the year. Barring an injury, Antonio Brown's going to be one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers in fantasy, right? Okay. Yeah. He's easy. Aaron Rodgers is going to be one of the first, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in fantasy. But somebody like Spencer Ware has a chance to be a top 10 fantasy running back in a certain situation if something were to happen to Kareem Hunt, where you knew he was going to be a guy. So there are guys like that I think have that chance. That have a very kind of a narrow window, right? So Spencer Ware would certainly be one of them. James Conner backing up Le'Veon Bell. Chase Edmonds in Arizona behind David Johnson there, right? Rod Smith in Dallas behind Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm definitely a handcuff guy because in a certain situation, in some of those teams where one guy would get the majority of the work, I think is pretty interesting.
Just about a minute left. Who could be this year's Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt?
That's the same question.
Right, sure. So this year's Alvin Kamara, I think, is a guy. Remember, Alvin Kamara was a number 3 running back on a very prolific offense going into the year unheralded. Give me Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers, suspended for the first 2 games. No one's really talking about him. They're going to talk about Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery. But you look at it in terms of running backs that had at least 80 touches last year. The only player that had more big plays per touch, meaning plays over 10 yards, Aaron Jones. Yeah. After Alvin Kamara is the only one who had more than Aaron Jones. I think he's the best running back on that team. I think he wins that job by the middle of the season. That would be my pick for this year's Alvin Kamara. And I don't know that there is a Kareem Hunt.
All right, literally in 10 seconds. Royce Freeman, up or down with the Broncos?
Up and down. Up. Love Royce Freeman this year.
There you go. You got
my rookie after Saquon.
There you go.
Oh.
Wow, look at that. Okay, little nugget. Matthew Berry, he's doing this for the duration.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha 990. I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
ESPN NFL insider extraordinaire Adam Schefter giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Okay, so we got Straight Talk and contracts in that read. So give us the Straight Talk about the contract for Roquan Smith. What took so long?
Well, before we get to that, I gave Trey some information already. In the 16-team War Room League here at ESPN,
right.
Trey did not know, but he drew the 12th pick yesterday.
And now is it Snake then?
Snake draft.
Okay.
12 is not bad, actually. If you're not one of the top two, I like picking where I am.
I don't know that there's a good place to be in a 16-team draft. If you're number one, you're sitting back there until picks 32 and 33.
Yeah, it's tough.
A lot of players go off the board. If you're where we are, I'm 14. You're
14?
12,
Okay.
14.
Yeah.
You're sitting there.
I think I had the first pick last year.
Like anything else, you just it's like, is this off bye week good? You make it good for you. So you make it sound like the 14 pick is good, or you the 12.
16 teams is brutal.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Especially when it comes to running backs.
Oh, my
16-team league at running back is brutal.
Yeah, I was starting like Matthew Berry by week 17 last year.
Field Yates was my third wide receiver.
And I would imagine it's finding that gem, like the Kareem Hunts or the Camaras of the world, because now, for the fifth time in the last 6 years, running backs have the top two spots on their average draft position for ESPN. You go back to 2013, it was Adrian Peterson, Arian Foster, then Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, then Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon Bell. Then it won two wide receivers in 16, Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham Jr. Then 2017, David Johnson was one, Le'Veon number 2, and now this year it's Le'Veon and Todd Gurley, who had the most on the PPR points per game last season of about 25.5 points. He was unreal.
Well, he was a league winner for teams last year.
Oh,
the final 2 weeks of the year in the playoffs, he brought it, and he won teams' leagues. And I think I heard a stat last night that 39% of the teams that won fantasy championships on ESPN.com last year had Todd Gurley.
That's remarkable. Okay, Adam Schefter is here with us again. We'll dive into the fantasy in just a minute. But as we started this segment again with Straight Talking Content, it's okay. Listen, you're a little sleep deprived. I get it.
Actually,
Believe me, every day. I get it. What took so long with Roquan Smith and the Bears? Because they caved on the helmet thing. So basically, where did we end up?
Well, what it was about in the end, I think, was language that if he were to be released and there was offset language there that they had disputed, there was contract language on. It came down in the end to the on-field behavior beyond.
Not the helmet thing.
Not the helmet thing.
If you got suspended for other things on the field.
If he got suspended for fighting on the field, for touching an official, for whatever it may be on the field, that's what the dispute was about. And I don't know where they came in. My sense and guess would be that the Bears acquiesced, but they did not want to set precedent. But there's precedent and there's practical. And there are people in the first round, other players, that got the language that Roquan Smith was seeking, And the way it had been explained to me is Roquan Smith was not going to budge. Now, maybe he did budge. I don't know where they came in on that final point. But here's the deal. We're talking about a point that's so trivial that it should not hold him out that long anyway. So the team gets it done. He gets it done. They both get it done. He's in. Good for everybody. Everybody can go on.
I just want to make clear, because you said if he gets released.
Well, yeah. Well, there were a lot of. That was initially one of the disputes. That's offset language.
Okay.
That was not an issue.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we clear that up.
Yeah. Be very clear. The issue was on-field discipline affecting his bonus money, guaranteed money that was paid. So the question is whether it would void some of the guarantees if he were suspended for fighting, touching an official, doing something obscene on the field, whatever it would be that would lead to a suspension, which who knows if that would even happen. Then it would avoid some of the guarantees, and that's what they were fighting.
It seemed to shift. You correct me if I'm wrong, Schefty, that when he was adamant about the helmet thing, players were like, hey, or everyone was like, we're on your side. But once the Bears kind of acquiesced to that and it went to that other stuff, then it was kind of like, you may want to get in. This may not be worth the longer holdout.
Yeah, I don't know how you gauge these things. Look, to me, there are so few instances when players get a chance to ask for and demand what they want. How many times does it happen? And
ask for everything because you may get something.
Right? And as a rookie, when you're a first-round pick and you're basically going to be signed away for minimum 4 years, probably 5 years, to me, the player has every right to ask for every single thing that he possibly can get. Because for the next 4 or 5 years, he doesn't get a thing. And if the team wants to release him, team wants to trade him, team wants to do whatever it wants to him, it can do that. So for a few weeks here, for Roquan Smith to demand certain language, I think that's well within his right.
Really, really quick, this is down the road, but just because we're kind of on it and you mentioned that, do you think in the next CBA deal, which is a few years down the road, that it's going to stay how it is, that the first rounders are 4 to 5 years, the fifth year of that option, or do you see that changing?
Well, I'll just say this to you, that, again, we talk about this all the time. Oh, the players cannot let Roger Goodell have the powers that he has.
Yeah.
I say, who cares?
Who cares about that?
Who cares about Get rid of the fifth-year option on these rookie deals that's costing more players more money than anything else. Roger Goodell's power. Who cares about that?
Well, that's a great point, because the NFLPA, when they went through the CBA the last time around, when some people, including Ryan Clark, who was playing with the Steelers at the time and now works for us, was the player rep, they were one of the teams that held out and didn't want to do the CBA because of Roger Goodell having the power. But I think the NFL made a brilliant decision, was basically, look, that's about 10 to 15 players that might fall under discipline with Roger Goodell, or we can worry about making more money for almost all the players, and I think they made the right choice there.
And if the players want to address the commissioner's power at some point, fine. No problem with that. All I'm saying is that one of the top priorities, if not the top priority, would be the fifth-year option. How do you think Khalil Mack likes playing on that fifth-year option?
He doesn't.
Right,
that's why he's not playing at the moment.
How do you think Aaron Donald likes that?
He doesn't.
How do you think Odell Beckham Jr. likes that?
Doesn't.
I mean, it's... Yeah. And there should be some sort of change that when a player performs to a certain level after a certain number of years, like, the thing gets done, reworked.
Right.
Well, and I know they have the option after 3 years they can do that, but it just seems to me to be a little one-sided in that regard.
All right, you mentioned, as Adam Schefter, Insider, is here with us. Let's talk about some of those contracts. Where are we with Odell Beckham? Where are we with Aaron Donald? Where are we with Khalil Mack?
I know there were reports about Aaron Donald having a deal done this week. I don't believe that's going to happen at all.
Okay.
I think that eventually he could get a deal done, but the way it was explained to me is that the two sides aren't any further along. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not in regular contact, as Sean McVay said. Sean McVay was absolutely right. There's ongoing regular discussions. Increased dialogue was the exact phrase they used.
They're in the zip code.
Yeah. Well, which means they're in the bag and you may never get the letter anyway.
On the zip code, let's go back and look at all the statements that have been made about Aaron Donald. We're close. We're going to get this. Over 20 months. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Right. It's getting done or it's not getting done. And right now, I think both sides are optimistic, but I can tell you this for a fact. There's still a lot of work to do, and there's still some questions as to whether they can get it done. I think both sides are hopeful. Both sides want to get it done. They're motivated to get it done. And it wouldn't shock me if in the next couple of weeks we had something, but you're not going to get something this week.
Yeah, I would imagine for Donald it would be that last week maybe he misses all the camp, but doesn't go too far to where he misses the first game like that.
So that's Donald.
Right.
Yeah. Mac, is not any further along. They haven't any contract discussions since February.
Yeah, does that surprise you? It's been that long, and look, the Raiders, he's their best defensive player. It was just 2 years ago he was voted first-team All-Pro on 2 different positions. So, you can't convince me in any way, shape, or form that they're going to be a better team without him.
I'll just say this. Look, to me, if I'm the Raiders, it's very simple. Either I'm going to make a deal with Khalil Mack, I'm going to approach him, or I'm going to make a deal with another team. Because to sit here and have it just linger, I don't think helps anybody right now.
Yeah.
Where's it going? And then Odell Beckham Jr., I think before the season they'll figure out something and get something done for Odell.
So a quick follow-up on him, and then we can stay with the Giants and go to Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Odell Beckham's not stepping on the field for preseason. And I know you've been adamant about he shouldn't be on the field at all. So obviously taking our thoughts out of it, is there any thought process that if he doesn't get a deal done when the regular season rolls around, he doesn't step foot on the field?
I haven't heard that. In my own mind, I know what I would be thinking.
Well, I know you.
And so
you've made that very clear. Yeah.
And that's why I do believe that somehow, some way, both sides will figure it out and get it done by the time the regular season starts. Whether that's this week, next week, I don't know exactly when, but I think that Beckham deal has to get done for both sides' sake, more so for his than the team's, to be perfectly frank. And plus, you look at all the players from his draft class, the wide receivers, they've all been paid. Right, Sammy Watkins got paid. Mike Evans got paid. Brandon Cooks got paid. Right. Now, Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack also in that draft class, great draft class, but Beckham's still waiting for his. I think he knows he's got to get this done. And if they're offering Odell Beckham Jr., let's make this up, $17.5 million, and he wants $19.5 million, you know what I would say? Take with the money that's on the table right now and call it a day.
Yeah.
And move on.
Well, yeah, that's
and make it up in
get it
shoe
in your
money.
Pocket.
Well, yeah, he's going to make up a lot of. He's got a lot. Listen, if he's on the field doing what he's doing, especially in the city of New York, he'll be fine with endorsement money. Adam Schefter is here with us. There is concern about something else besides Odell Beckham Jr.'s contract in Giants camp, and that is Saquon Barkley showed up with a hamstring, and everyone's like, "Oh, his hamstring is wrapped." Where are we? Is it a big concern or not a big concern?
Listen, we're on August 14th. The regular season begins for the Giants September 9th, I believe it is.
Yep.
You know what you do? You shut him down till then. You make extra sure that he's not doing anything where he's exerting himself, aggravating the injury. Hamstrings on running backs can be temperamental. So, to me, you have him out there for all the drills. He's watching everything. He's mentally going through the drills, but I would not be pushing that in any way, shape, or form. He's too valuable, and hamstrings are too sensitive on running backs to do that. You just give him some rest to me and have him ready for September 9th.
Okay, because listen, let's be honest. Everybody is all in on the Saquon experience, but I'm not sure if anybody...
Can I say something about that? Listen, I think Saquon Barkley is a tremendous player, and hopefully he's everything that the Giants think he is. I'm just going to say this, and I've said this over and over. I live in New York, and every day get asked about Saquon Barkley and Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold turns out to be what the Jets think he is, then the Giants made a bad long-range move.
Yeah.
No matter how good Saquon Barkley is short-term.
100% agree.
Yep, totally with you.
And so he's the guy that right now, short-term, it feels great, looks great, and he's going to be great. Mm-hmm. That's not in dispute. The question is, what's best for the franchise long-term? If Sam Darnold is what the Jets think, boy, that's going to be tough.
Okay, so Sam Darnold looked decent in his first preseason game, but to the Saquon experience, I mean, ESPN.com did a thing, best positions in football 25 years or under, and Saquon Barkley was one of the running backs before he'd ever played a preseason snap. I mean, the hype around Saquon is getting a little ridiculous, and nothing is more about that than our hype man himself, Louis Riddick.
There were people who were knocking him when he came out of school about the fact that he couldn't make people miss behind the line of scrimmage, prevent negative runs.
Right.
Well, didn't that first run kind of answer some of the questions?
It's one run,
Just
Louis.
trust me, though. Yeah. Trust me when I say this to you. You know I don't go all in unless I believe it.
Okay.
He's legit now. The guy has got some sweet... He hears these things, too. He hears these things that people are saying about him, too. I think we're going to see one of those years up there, man, that you're going to remember when you're talking about a rookie running back who's going to come into this league and really take a whole franchise, put it on his back, along with everything else that surrounds the New York Giants. They're going to be back.
The one thing that was odd, he hears what they're saying about him. Everybody's putting him in the Hall of Fame already. Here's what he's saying about him. I mean, listen, when they did that under 25 and they put him on that list, I'm with you. And God knows he may have a fantastic career. But let's get a play in a real game before we put him on any list about best in the league. And he very well may live up to it. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Adam Schefter joining us, our ESPN NFL insider. All right, Shefty. A lot of us in the Twitter world, while we're watching the preseason games, couldn't wait to hit send on some of the helmet calls that were going on. Man. But I guess, should we all just take that breath and say, okay, it's preseason. Even the refs are trying to get this thing right, and hopefully by week 1, we're going to be in a better position than we were now with 25 of those calls, some of the most ridiculous calls I've ever seen, and others that you thought were going to be calls, you got no flags at all. So do we just take that as officials in preseason game 1 trying to implement a rule differently?
You know, I'm not exactly sure what to make of this. We're going to have the NFL here on Thursday.
Yep, we are.
We're going to have league officials. I think we'll all be a little bit smarter at that point in time. I think everybody's trying to figure it out right now because it's such a radical change in which they're trying to help affect the culture of the game and to get players to think differently. But you watch some of these hits, and to me, they're completely unavoidable. Like
the Cardinals' safety, Paul, I still can't get over. It was against the Chargers. It was a perfect tackle, Adam. He slowed up, led with his shoulder, and then used his arms to wrap up and bring the player down. If that's a penalty, we're going to have a big problem in the NFL this year.
And I think there are going to be plays like this that get called that you say, what else could that defender have done in this play? And look, it seems like we've wasted a lot of energy the last few years talking about what's a catch and what's not a catch. Yeah. Now, what's going to be a legal tackle and what's not going to be a legal tackle.
And to me, the play, Trey, obviously that play, I was like, wait a minute, that should be how you tackle. To me, about one that was not called, that things you want to get rid of, was the Isaiah Crowell touchdown when he was in open space, full head of steam, and dropped his head. The defenders dropped their heads. Crowell left the game after that one, by the way. That was your classic full-speed head dropping of what you want out of the game, and no flags.
Right.
And I tweeted about it, and somebody tweeted, well, it was by the goal line. So what? I mean, it shouldn't matter where it is on the field. If you want guys to stop dropping their heads, but you're going to let them drop their head on the goal line at a full head of speed, man, you're opening yourself up to some bad injuries on that case. So I hope they get more, and I'm sure they will. Again, it was preseason game 1. We all think they kind of threw this thing in, and we were in the offseason like, wait a minute, they doing what? And you know what? It showed in the first week of preseason.
No question. Listen, as people say all the time, just like the teams and players use preseason to get reps and things right, the officials are doing that as well, and you hope it won't be called that same way in the regular season. By the way, that sound of Louis Riddick was from the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio 1 to 3. You can hear and watch on ESPN News as well. Golic and Wingo presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. So let me ask you a couple of questions as we're in the fantasy football marathon here. Look, last year, 2 third-round picks really stole the show, running backs, Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt. You had 2 running backs, or was it 3, go in the top 10 last year? 2, McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette. And they had fine years, but the breakout stars were Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara. Who do you see this year as those guys that weren't drafted in the first round, that may be those guys that have huge impacts for fantasy leagues?
Well, I always love rookie running backs, and I think a guy you're looking at right now that looked impressive over the weekend is Royce Freeman.
There it is. Second guy to bring him up,
I think people like him. Now, Kareem Hunt last year, you remember, Spencer Ware got hurt during the preseason. The Chiefs were left with very few options, and Kareem Hunt's draft position in fantasy last year rose up to where by the time drafts rolled around right before the start of the season, Kareem Hunt was a legitimate second-round fantasy draft pick. And so he lit it up, and he validated that pick when people were taking him last year as high as 15, 16, 17, 18, which was very high for a player that we didn't know can play. But a lot of times when you see these rookie running backs, they just come on and make an immediate impact, and I think people have figured that out. I'll tell you another guy that people aren't talking about right now because he's a little bit down and out is Sony Michel. I think right now, even though the knee was drained and they're hopeful and optimistic that he'll be ready for the start of the regular season, that's a guy, look, let's think about this. How often is a running back picked in the first round? Not very often.
Yeah.
So if a guy is taken there and the Patriots happen to take him and they're lacking weapons on the outside, particularly without Julian Edelman early in the year serving a 4-game suspension, someone's going to be catching a lot of passes there in Foxborough. And to me, that's another guy that is not generating a lot of conversation right now. And the knee is, I think, worrisome. There's no question about it. But that's a guy that if that knee gets right, could be a huge factor this year.
I completely agree, especially New England. You know, Bill was not afraid to put all kinds of different players in there. He'll get his chance as long as that knee is okay. By week 1 of the regular season, will Dez Bryant be on a team?
He's going to meet with Cleveland this week, at least as I was told yesterday, as of now.
So he's returning, John Dorsey's calls.
He's returning Mr. Dorsey.
That's the start. That's the start, yeah.
And I would think that those two sides will be able to work something out, because I think if Dez is going to visit, I think that John Dorsey is going to be persuasive enough to get him to sign there. And so I think Cleveland right now is tracking as the likely landing spot for whatever that's worth, and we'll see if the two sides can get a deal done. So put him in Cleveland, hypothetically, and that's where I would think he would be. Him, Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, Antonio Callaway.
Well, to that point, you mentioned Josh Gordon real quickly, and where are we with Josh and him getting ready to play? I know the Cleveland Browns have basically said, hey, take your time.
I've had panic fantasy football drafters text me, should I draft him? And I say, there are few players more talented than Josh Gordon, and there's almost nobody more risky than Josh Gordon.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, to me, we expect him back, Trey. When that's going to be, I don't know whether that's going to be today or next week or next season.
I think you take a flyer. It's just a matter of when you take a flyer on him.
The problem in fantasy, in the fantasy world, is that flyer's got to come in the third or fourth round, fifth round.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just too rich for me. Yeah. Now, I might get burnt for that because the guy may come on and play and lead the league in receiving, but I can't do it. To me, fantasy is about safety and value and hitting in certain spots. Maybe that would be a spot you hit on. It would worry me.
Adam, you're the best, man. You doing okay? You got your caffeine?
I'm fine.
Barry came in here with a huge thing that said fantasy draft juice in a huge mug.
Yeah,
so
not
you're
an
good?
issue. Oh, yeah. Not an
Look
issue.
at you. By the way, it was really funny. Last year, right about the end of the fantasy, just about...
That never happened before. I fell asleep on air.
Fell asleep on the air. We got a photo of him. Matthew and I, we're on the petty show in America.
Yeah.
As soon as he fell asleep, 29 hours in, we got our cameras out and took a picture of him.
My jaw's dropping, the drool's coming.
Lean back in the chair. He was going. It was great. Fantasy Football Marathon, always a lot of fun. Always good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you guys.
Adam Schefter with us.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
Very interesting where that went.
We've been lied to for our entire lives. We were doing a Google search on famous Croatians, and the Golics came up. They're Slovenian. Then his name is Mike Golic. It shouldn't be Golic.
It's not Golics anymore. They've been a fraud for a long time. It's the Goliches.
Golic and Wingo.
Were you kidding about the Golic thing?
Golic. There is a controversy involving the Goliches.
Golic.
Golic. Mike Golic Jr. was cracking up when I found out.
Golic Jr.
Nobody's name is what you think it is, given what we've seen with the Golic.
It is not Golic, Mike Ryan.
Adnan.
SportsCenter brought to you by Mile 22. I can't wait to see this movie.
Yeah.
Don't miss Mark Wahlberg in Mile 22, only in theaters in Friday. From Peter Berg, the director of Lone Survivor, comes the last great thrill ride of the summer. It's 22 miles of pulse pounding, breathless, nonstop action. Mile 22 is rated R. See it in IMAX and premium large format this Friday. I'm really looking forward to that.
All right. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News. By the way, we had an update. The last left-handed quarterback, because the trivia question was the last left-handed to throw a touchdown.
Right. Which was
caveat being it wasn't a quarterback.
It was Dez Bryant.
Yeah. So the last left-handed quarterback?
A lot of people were saying Tim Tebow.
Yeah. It was not Tim Tebow. Adam Schefter got it right. It was Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore for the Cowboys in Week 17, January 3rd, 2016, in a 34-23 loss to the Redskins. Moore went 33 of 48, 435 yards, threw 3 touchdowns, and a couple of picks.
And the guy who caught the touchdown pass was Cole Beasley. So the really interesting quirk there, the last left-hander to throw a touchdown pass was a Cowboy, Dez Bryant. The last left-handed quarterback to throw a touchdown pass was Cowboy quarterback Kellen Moore. Okay, that? You were just talking about that movie, right?
Yeah,
22 Mile.
22.
It says rated R, right?
Right.
Which means it's quite possible that the next governor of Vermont would not be allowed to go see that movie.
You would not be allowed to go see it.
This is an insane story. There's a 14-year-old boy in Burlington, Vermont named Ethan Sonborn. I hope I'm getting that right. Sonborn, who met the requirements to be on the primary ballot and is taking his place with the state's more age-appropriate candidates on the Tuesday tonight primary ballot to be elected governor of Vermont.
He fits the qualifications, and he's 14. And he says, I think Vermonters should take me seriously because I have a practical, progressive ideas, and I happen to be 14, not the other way around.
I think go ahead, finish this quote.
I think that my message and my platform transcend age.
Okay, let me just be clear about one thing. I love the fact that he can say things like this. At 14, could you say, my practical progressive ideas should transcend my age? Could you say that sentence and fully understand what you were saying?
Absolutely not. I was too busy drinking. No, come on.
Wink, wink.
Stop it.
I mean, the
Vermont Constitution doesn't have an age requirement for people seeking the state's highest office beyond having lived in that state for 4 years before the election. So he qualifies.
So you can qualify as a 4-year-old. Basically, according to the Vermont State Constitution, as it's presently written, as long as you have been in Vermont and you are 4 years old, you can run for governor.
How about that? So at a recent news conference, Republican Governor Phil Scott said he thought lawmakers should take a look at who should be able to run for the state's highest office. His quote, "I think you should at least be able to get your driver's license at the time that you become governor."
I think that's a fair point. Right?
I think it is a fair point.
Listen, but this kid has, I mean, to sit there and make some of these statements and actually put together a platform of progressive ideas that he believes are practical. I mean, technically he can't even vote for himself. He's not old enough to vote, but that's the weird part. He's not old enough to vote in the primary, but he can be on the ballot to be the actual elected official as the governor of Vermont.
He thinks he'll do better in the primary than people are expecting, and his measurement of success is this way. He said, "I think if I can get one person who wasn't involved in the political process before involved now, then my campaign would have been a success." That's a very heady thing to say.
Absolutely it is.
He's raised just over $1,700 for his campaign. Obviously, you need way, way more than that. I would love to see him on the stage with the other candidates.
Correct.
In like a debate.
Yeah.
That's what I would love to see.
I'm thinking of like the Revenge of the Nerds movie when that kid goes to college and he's one half the size of everybody else. Look, Ethan, good for you, man.
Absolutely.
Way to take advantage of the laws as it's currently written. But I have to be honest, I'm not sure I want a 14-year-old going through puberty running the state government.
Watch out for this kid in another decade in the world of politics.
14 years, he might really be something. Coming up, we'll talk to one of last season's breakout players in fantasy and real football. That's it, Golic and Wingo, well past the age of 14.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
We're delighted to be joined again by Adam Thielen, friend of the show, who is going to be one of our guides around Minneapolis for the Super Bowl.
Right.
Got a little busy, got a little cold, we understand. Adam, how are you this morning? How are things going in camp so far for you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. We're doing good.
Doing well, and I think we have to start off this way. Just because we saw your wide receiver mate, Stefan Diggs, get all that money that he got. Last year at this time, Adam, you were 81st overall in fantasy ratings. This year, you go in the same spot 1 year later, 29th. So you jumped a lot of spots. Interesting. You know who's number 30? Some guy named Stefan Diggs. Your teammate is one spot behind you. Walk in there, demand a raise right now, Adam. Just do it.
Yeah, luckily that's why I have an agent, and I get to just go out there and play football. So, like I said, that's why you hire a guy like that. Why I can just not have to worry about that stuff and just go out there and play football and try to be the best teammate and help this team win games.
No, we're not doing that, Adam. Hold on. Breaking news right now. Adam Thielen is walking out of camp.
Yes!
He's holding out. He's just told us on Golic and Wingo he is furious that Stefan Diggs got a deal and he didn't. And we're breaking. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
We're glad you're doing it the right way.
We are.
So tell us a little bit about the transition from Case Keenum, who had really an MVP caliber season, to Kirk Cousins. Because let's be honest, Adam, when you sign a contract for a guy 3 years, $84 million guaranteed, and you move on for a guy who on the road in the NFC Championship game had you guys the lead in the first quarter against the Philadelphia Eagles, you're basically all in. Chips all on the table to do one thing, have him bring you a championship. How has it gone with you and Kirk Cousins so far this summer?
Yeah, honestly, it's been a really smooth transition. We were able to get a kind of a jump start on it and go out to Atlanta and meet up with him and throw a little bit, get to know him a little bit, which I think was really helpful. And then I think we did a really good job of taking advantage of OTAs and minicamp and making sure that we're getting on the same page and trying to figure out what what he likes and him to try to figure out what we like to do. And I think it's really carried over into training camp, which is a good thing. Obviously, it takes a long time to get on the same page, and there's going to be things along the season that come up, and we have to learn from. But it's been a really good start.
See, go into that a little bit, Adam. Take people down there, because I think the position that needs the most cohesiveness is that offensive line. Those 5 guys have to work in unison like a dance step all the time. But that relationship and getting to know one another of receiver and quarterback, can you dig a little deeper into that? What are, like when you go from Case Keenum to Kirk Cousins to right-handed quarterbacks, so you talk about the spin of the ball and all that, but what do you have to get to know from one another that helps out the on-the-field product?
Yeah, there's just so many things. I just don't think people, can even begin to understand it unless you're in the situation. But I guess a few examples would be, how on certain routes, how is he going to throw the ball? Is it going to be a firm ball? Is it going to be a little air, a little touch? And then, certain routes he likes them ran differently, and then other quarterbacks, he wants you in a certain spot at a certain time. And those are all the little things that you kind of have to learn as you go. You have to make a mistake. You have to go look at film and say, okay, this is what I want you to do. This is where I want you to be at this time. This is kind of what I'm looking at and where my reads are going. So there's just so much that goes into it. And like I said, a lot of it you can't really learn from in the classroom. You have to learn from by doing it on the field and making a mistake, or maybe having an incomplete pass or something like that. And then you kind of go back and review, talk about it, and then hopefully the next time you do it right.
This hour of Golic and Wingo brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. Is Vikes wideout Adam Thielen joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. So you are with Kirk Cousins now. Obviously, it was Case Keenum a year ago. And it had to be weird because the first preseason game was in Denver, and across the scrimmage now as your opposing quarterback was Case Keenum. What was that like, and what did you guys talk about after the game was over?
Well, it was great to see him, number one. Got to see him a little bit this summer, played some golf with him. But, just so happy for him. He ended up getting a really good deal out there in Denver. And, you can tell the fans out there and the coaches just absolutely love him. So, you're kind of happy for him. You're proud of him. And, you're excited to see what he can do. Luckily, he's in the AFC, so we don't have to worry about him unless we play him in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to cheer for him and obviously hope the best. He's an unbelievable guy, great leader, and he's a good friend.
Yeah, that game was all kind of weird because Trevor Siemian was the Broncos starter for most of last year. Now he's home with the Vikings. Yeah. That was sort of like, hey, I know you, you know me. Just out of curiosity, I got to ask now, who's a better golfer? You were Case.
Well, I did beat him in Lake Tahoe this year.
There you go.
So I couldn't let him beat me, and he's probably not going to be happy I said that, but we're pretty competitive people, so I couldn't let him beat me.
Hey, facts matter, man. The bottom line is you played. That's why they give you a scorecard. As our good friend Herm Edwards say, you play to win the game. So you play to have the lowest score. So don't back away from it, Adam. Enjoy it. Embrace it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, every quarterback should be embarrassed if they lose because they wear red jerseys at practice so they don't have to hit anybody and be sore. That's just my personal former defensive line mad at quarterback type of thing. Sorry about that. Adam, as far as the team going into the season, do you bring up how last year ended to try and use it as motivation going forward, or is it kind of you cut the cord on that and just completely start new?
Yeah, we really don't. I think you kind of have it in the back of your mind, but I just don't think it really, I don't think it benefits you at all to talk about it. I think the guys that have been here, they understand how hard it is to win in this league, and we understand that just by showing up this year, we're not going to get to that point. So we have to kind of go back to step one and do the little things that helped get us there last year. And then when we do get to that point, then maybe we can think about it and say, okay, what did we do when we got to that point? What did we do that helped us get to that point, and then, what did we do last year that maybe helped us lose that game? And we did, we've had meetings and that talk about all of our losses. What did we do that caused us to lose these games, and how can we change it? So it's not just the NFC Championship game; it's all of our losses. We have to go back and learn from those and try to adjust.
Vikes wideout Adam Thielen joining us, who's going to begin his contract holdout right after this interview is over. We're going to beat that drum the entire show. One of the things that will help you guys is obviously a healthy Dalvin Cook. You guys went through a ton of running backs last year because of injury. Dalvin looked like he was poised to be a breakout star for the first few games before he went down. Where is he on his rehab, and how has he looked so far?
Well, he's been out there. He's been out there every training camp practice, and he's a guy who's worked extremely hard this offseason, and he looks unbelievable. He looks like the Dalvin that we know from last year, and we're just excited to have him back because he's such an explosive player. I mean, you see it every day in practice. The coaches that or maybe our new coaches or new players around here, when he kind of gets going, they look around and say, "Wow, that guy can play." And we're kind of used to it because we see it all the time. But no, he's a special player. He's a great locker room guy, and we're just fortunate to have him. But it doesn't stop there. We have Latavius as well, who was huge for us last year, and you saw kind of his explosiveness early in the game last week. So having those two guys is going to be huge, not only for our team but for us as receivers to help us get open and have a little less coverage when they have to worry about the run game as well.
Certainly a lot expected out of the Minnesota Vikings this year. Adam Thielen joining us there. Fantastic wide receiver, 91 catches last year, over 1,200 yards. So finally, I'll end it this way. Has Cousins or Diggs bought an expensive dinner for you guys at this point, or is that coming up in the near future?
I'm all over Diggs to buy me dinner. I'm waiting for a dinner. I think he's going to do it. He said he bought me a shirt. I don't know what the shirt's going to look like, but he did say he's bought me a shirt. So, but I'm going to keep on him for the dinner.
Bought you a shirt?
Yeah, he bought me a shirt, which is a very thoughtful gift because I do love T-shirts. But it'll be interesting to see what it looks like.
He didn't buy you a car.
But here's the thing. Here's what the shirt says. Diggs signed the big contract, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
That's exactly right. In fact, you should wear that T-shirt when you walk into GM Rick Spielman's office right after this show and tell him you're holding out.
There you go.
That's the shirt you're
Hey, look at the fantasy standings.
You guys are going to get me in trouble.
Yeah, we are.
Pretty much. That's what we're trying to do.
Sorry,
No, you're a friend of the show. It's great to have you on. We know you'll get that payday coming, and best of luck to you and the Vikings as you get ready for what we hope will be another stellar year in Minneapolis.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for being with us this morning.
All right, I appreciate it, guys.
Golic
Makes me want to vomit and then punch you square in the face.
and Wingo.
Oh, he's saucy today.
Asking Brett this more. How many coaches received votes in this?
According to the NBCA, Coaches Association, 7 other coaches received votes in addition to Casey: Brett Brown, Mike D'Antoni, Nate McMillan, Greg Popovich, Quinn Snyder, Harry Stotts, and Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers?
We're saying we have some integrity issues in the voting.
Wait a minute. Doc Rivers?
So look, we're trying to get to the bottom of this.
Doc
It's
Clippers?
crazy. Once
Doc
again,
Clippers? Doc from the Clippers? Doc
Cut it.
Rivers from the Clippers?
Clip it.
They jumped on me. It's unbelievable how quickly they jumped on me.
We're petty.
Sports Center brought to you by Sport Clips. Do your hair a favor by checking in online and arriving just in time for your Sport Clips MVP haircut experience while you surround yourself with nothing but sports on TV. Great cut, massaging shampoo, and hot steam towel. Claim that spot today. SportClips.com/check-in.
All right, Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. As always, we are presented by Progressive Insurance, and this is why our staff is the best at what they do. They help us in our role as being the pettiest show in America, but they always are very timely with our rejoins, like the one you just heard, where you, instead of saying Doc Rivers at one point getting a vote for Coach of the Year, said Doc Clippers!
Doc Clippers!
Exactly. And the reason that's relevant, Mike, is because there is news about the Clippers organization and someone who won't be a part of it for a very peculiar reason. Bruce Bowen, who for years worked with us here at ESPN as an NBA analyst, did a great job, defensive specialist, won a bunch of rings playing for the San Antonio Spurs, was part of the Clippers broadcast team last year. But he won't be coming back for a very interesting reason.
He will not, because when the whole Kawhi Leonard thing was going on, and certainly a lot of current and especially former players, current players weren't going to say much, but former players certainly were going to speak up. And as a former player who was asked about this, Bruce Bowen has said this about Kawhi Leonard. I think there's nothing but excuses going on. First, it was, well, I was misdiagnosed. He says, look here, you got $18 million this year. You think they're going to rush you? You didn't play for the most part a full season. this year, and you're the go-to guy. You're the franchise, and you want to say that they didn't have your best interests at heart? Are you kidding me? But Bowen went on to say, I think he's getting bad advice. I think what you're starting to see now is an individual given a certain amount of advice, and it's not the right advice. So had some what people thought harsh words for Kawhi Leonard.
But not out of the ordinary.
No, but the Clippers, remember, Kawhi Leonard said, want to go to the Lakers, got traded to Toronto, and after next year is going to be a free agent, of which the Clippers are going to be trying to sign, said Kawhi Leonard, because he wants to go to L.A., and the Clippers are thinking, okay, we're in L.A., why not us, why not now? So they want to go after him, and part of their thought process is, well, wait a minute, if we have a guy doing our games who has talked badly about this guy that we're trying to get, maybe that won't go over too well.
Or perhaps it is made, because you know how this works, made through back channels that maybe Kawhi's people might have said, hey, look, man, if you want to, maybe with or without Kawhi's blessing, you want to sign this guy, just so you know, we might have an issue if a guy who came out and called somebody out is part of your broadcast team.
Yeah, me personally, I don't think it went that far at that point. I think this was more, in my opinion, I think the Clippers were trying to cover their base of trying to set the deck and the table to make a legitimate run at Kawhi Leonard and not to have any obstacles. And I believe, no matter what you believe out there about this, I believe they think that Brucey may have been an obstacle to getting that goal. And Kawhi may not have signed there anyway, but they feel to give their best chance, we need the clearest path for it. And they feel what Bruce said could possibly come back to haunt them, which is, that's a shame. A guy giving his opinion, that's what you want, is a guy to give his opinion. You read the opinion, I don't think he destroyed Kawhi Leonard. He was just like, well, wait a minute, you're making $18 million. You're the franchise. Why would they want to rush you? I understand the things Bruce was saying, so it certainly seems like being a little oversensitive to what Bruce said as opposed to us trying to get Kawhi Leonard next year.
And the other thing is we actually played that audio on the show, and he wasn't frothing at the mouth, because sometimes when you read it in print and you hear it, there's a big distinction with tone and inference and language. He wasn't like crazy.
No, but at the end of the day, while people may like him giving his opinion, the people who employ him and are going to go after Kawhi Leonard and are thinking, you know what? We don't want this in our way. We don't want Kawhi to be able to think about anything other than maybe signing with us as far as, what this guy who does our games said about me a while ago. So it's certainly their right to do, and it's whether anybody thinks that's the right move or not. I didn't think it was overly crazy, the criticism at all. But if you want to look at it from the Clipper side, you'd rather have kind of a clean slate kind of as come to us as opposed to, come to us and let it. Now,
we'll work that out.
Bruce, maybe you should talk to Kawhi. We need to work this thing out. They don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
So,
I just feel terrible for Bruce.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I like Bruce. I like Bruce a lot.
I agree. I'm with you.
And it's not like he called him some ridiculous name.
But it was enough for the Clippers to think this could be, even if it's a little speed bump, we don't want even a speed bump getting in the way of the possibility of us getting a guy like Kawhi Leonard.
All right, so the question then becomes, in the spirit of this show, them firing him for that petty or not petty?
Sitting here, I think it's a bit petty.
It's a little petty.
If I look at it from the Clipper side, I can somewhat understand what they're trying to do to have a clear path to do it.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.